Yura, hello. My name is Isiah Hippisley, a proud Pita man, and I pay my respects to the ancestors, elders, past, present, and emerging, who strengthens and guides us, continually nurtures us, and inspires us to be future custodians of this land. Now sit back, enjoy, and why don't you listen on into a bit of a yarn.
Well, welcome. This is the Yarning Circle. So it's so awesome having you on here, man. For those listening on in, we have Oscar. Oscar is the absolute man. He's the legend. What's your gig? What do you do, man? Talk to me.
What do I do? I make it up as I go, don't I?
Oh, don't we all?
So I'm co-owner of Rugby League Riders,
Yep.
which is a business I started 3 or 4 years ago now, with a mate that I met through footy, a New Zealand fella called Jason. We both found ourselves watching every game of footy every weekend, sometimes twice. We loved all the X's and O's. You know, a lot of rugby league media focuses on all the... Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah. That's
all the shit that happens outside the 80 minutes each weekend.
yeah.
Whereas we had a really keen focus on what was happening on the field every night. And so, a few afternoons at the pub over some schooners talking about footy. We decided to start writing about it during COVID. And that's just kind of rolled over the last few years. And then this year is the first time that I've kind of taken a back seat from teaching and some other like full-time work that I was doing, and made Rugby League Riders the main breadwinner, I guess, this year, which has been really cool. A surreal feeling, kind of waking up and going into the room next door and working for myself. Just in the last few weeks, obviously footy season's just started. We're in round 2 at the moment. So yeah, man, it's cool. That's where I spend most of my time and energy, is watching footy and riding vocational schools up here in Brizzy. I'm doing some casual work across all the campuses at the moment, which has been really good. Get to meet some different practitioners, work with a bunch of different kids. Keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, most definitely.
And breaks up the routine a bit. Otherwise, sometimes I go a bit stir crazy writing thousands of words about the same oval-shaped ball every week. So, no, it's good, man. It's good.
So when you say writing about footy, is it all about what's happening in your game?
Yeah.
And it's do you break down like the analytics of it, or
Yeah, so we'll look big at stats aren't everything. But we look closely at stats. We'll cut up GIFs of scoring actions or moments in games and talk about that, focusing on player combinations and attacking styles and trends and stuff in the game. So I guess our 2 main demographics that we're targeting is footy nerds like ourselves.
Yeah.
And then punters that want to feel more informed about what they're betting on, which is a category I also fall into. Whether or not we just want to be talking about a new player that's just come on the scene, or a new shape that we've never seen before, or whether we're looking at where the value might be in a certain game each week. So, yeah.
So it's really breaking down the game.
Yeah, super specific.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it's like, for example, I wrote a piece this week about hookers. I think over the last few years in the NRL, for any mad footy heads that are listening, ball playing lock forward, so that guy in the middle of the field who can pass the ball one off the ruck and be that link man between the dummy half and the outside backs. That's been something that's really come into the fore over the last few years with guys like Cam Murray and Isiah, Victor Radley, these kind of guys. But this year, the sample size is only small, but from the first 2 weeks of this season, we're seeing dummy halves get a lot more involved in attack. So I wrote a piece on the dummy halves, some of the better dummy halves going around in the competition this week, and that'll be something that I'll watch out for over the next few weeks. Like, are teams that have this type of dummy half more effective than someone else, for example? So yeah, super analytical, X's and O's kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's wicked, man.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask the elephant in the room.
Yep.
What's your opinion on the Dolphins this year? Because they have come out with a bang.
Yeah,
bro.
100%.
They have just
fins up, baby. That's what I've been saying at school all week.
Fins up. Honestly, man, like I was talking to some of the boys as well, and we watched the game.
Yep.
Here, and man, the whole time I'm like, nah. I was like, new team, fresh
Yep.
everything. I was like, they're not going to pull through.
Yep.
They'll, this year will be their getting ready.
Growing-
growing year,
Yep.
which is what everyone's been saying.
Yep.
And they just annihilated the Chooks, bro.
Yeah, smoked
Like,
them. Yeah, I think. Well,
almost one of the top sides.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was just...
Are
I
you
was
a Bronx
blown
fan?
away. I'm a Bunnies fan.
Oh, of course you
Yeah.
are. Yeah. I think, likewise, go the Bunnies.
Yeah, I'm a Bunnies.
I think from speaking to a lot of people around Brisbane, a lot of Cowboys and Broncos fans, obviously, living in the city. But I think the best thing about that win last week for the Dolphins was so many people jumping on board with them as, whether or not it's their favourite team now, but certainly I think there's a bit of a vibe that it's everyone's second team a little bit this year, which is sick. I think from a content perspective, the Dolphins are just a goldmine for us at Rugby League Riders this year.
100%. And like just even in how they've just come out of almost nowhere and have just gone, bang, here's a new side, here's new players, here's new everything.
Yep.
And not to mention, the coaching for them, having such a professional coach on their side who has led so many teams continuously into premierships, and him to just be like, this is it. Like, we're a brand new side, we're the underdogs almost.
Yeah.
And there's been chit chatter and all of this. Like, I've got a lot of mates that play for development sides for Redcliffe and all this, and they're now so focused
Just buzzing to get in there.
Get in.
Yeah.
And it was kind of this, prior was, maybe,
Sure.
we'll see how they go.
Yeah.
And they just smoked.
It's funny how 80 minutes can change so much about what people think of a side. I think, Wayne Bennett, a huge factor. It's funny, people were talking about, maybe his allure has worn off a little bit in the fact that they weren't able to sign all these big names for this season. And then we've seen even in the last couple of days, I think Tom Flegler and Herbie Farnworth have both signed there. Like Herbie killed it the last 2 weeks for the Bronx. So I think we're going to see, I saw it this morning even, there was a Fox Sports article about how they've got this war chest that they're going to splash cash on for next year. I don't think they're going to have any trouble picking up players after the performance they put in last week. We talked, I'm on the Neds NRL Punting podcast with Dural Yao and a couple other guys from Neds. And we were talking yesterday, they like throwing a few hot takes around and Dolphins premiership or finalist contenders this year. I don't know if they'll play finals, but I don't think they're going to get the wooden spoon. I don't think Wayne Bennett's going to let that happen. That's good to see, man. I love it.
Not. That's wicked, man. So just really quickly on what you just mentioned about the Neds podcasting.
Yep.
So what is that? So is that like something that you're doing outside of your work, or is that entitled into it?
Yeah.
Or how does...
Yeah, it rolls into it. They contacted us last year and just to see if we're interested in doing some work for them. I jumped onto a couple. We were doing some social videos for them last year, just previewing one game each week. And then, they got me on as a guest last year for the Punting podcast, which is basically talking about everything that happened that week in the NRL and then giving some tips and that kind of stuff and just chatting a bit of shit, really, having a laugh. And that was, thankfully, got asked to go on to the podcast full time this year. So you can find that on all your Spotify, Apple,
go
all that
listen.
jazz.
Go listen. For everybody who's listening on in, definitely go listen to that. It's something. It's really, really awesome to be able to collab with other people who are in the same space.
Yeah,
and being able to have a joint conversation around essentially the same thing, which is that awareness to the game, awareness to the sport, and awareness to what people like you and myself are trying to do.
Yep.
And create that influence.
Yeah.
But doing it in a way that's entertaining.
Yeah,
and
I
doing
think
it in
so.
a way that's different than just having one-on-one conversation with people.
Yeah.
It creates a crazy flow-on impact.
It opens up discussion, I guess, for people to jump in where they like as well.
Definitely, man.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, running the your business and now doing the podcasting and working, part-time as a casual for the Y. Was there what was your bringing up? Like, what was your childhood like? Was it healthy? Was it toxic? What got you into a position of success that you are in today?
Man, I had a very, very privileged upbringing.
Yeah.
My mum and dad beautiful people, raised myself and my brother amazingly. You know, I went to private schools all the way through my schooling. So very lucky, I guess, to have a lot of good role models and access to a lot of things that obviously, as we know now, working at the Y, it's not the norm to have access to, you know, these expensive private schools and going on sporting camps and going on holidays and all that kind of jazz. So yeah, I was super lucky growing up. Both my parents went to university. Both are in, you know, successful professional careers. So yeah, as a young fella, I think that was just always my natural progression. It was like, okay, go through school.
Yeah.
I did well at school. I enjoyed school. And then straight from school, it was like, yep, let's go to uni. Then let's get a career. And that's kind of it. And then I ended up taking a gap year after I finished year 12. It was like a really last minute decision thing. But my mum had worked with someone who'd worked at a YMCA summer camp over in America.
Yeah.
Like a recreational camp, like exactly the kind of thing that you see in the movies and the log cabins out in the forest and they go on
with
abseiling.
the big lake.
Yeah, exactly, bro.
Yep.
So yeah, very last minute ended up applying for a camp counselor role there, which is basically like the kids roll in on a Sunday, they get put in a cabin of, you know, 15 or so kids the same age. And then there's 2 counselors that are in that cabin with them, and you just live with these kids for a week. You sleep in the same cabin with them. You take them around to all the different activities around there. So I was hired as a lifeguard because we had a pool and there's like aquatic sports and stuff. Got over there and ended up helping out with the cleaning the stables because I had a horse riding camp up there as well.
Yeah.
And then somehow just fell into, I kind of talked myself into a horse riding instructor role, even though I'd spent about 3 hours in the saddle my whole life. Thankfully, the horses were pretty placid. So yeah, ended up working there for 3 months as a horse riding instructor, working with kids, not necessarily the same kids that we work with at the Y here. In America, it's just very much part of their culture for kids to go away for a week in these summer camps. So mum and dad, you know, whether they're from a low socioeconomic area or whether mum and dad are jumping on a cruise, you know, around the country for a week, it's very normal for these kids to come into camp and hang out with people their own age. I think it's sick. I'd love.
Yeah, and that's such like a culture that I think we need.
I think so.
Not that I think we need. I know we need it. Like the culture that's developed around our young 18, 19, 17-year-old youth is so toxic. It's if you finish school, maybe go to uni, and then what schoolies, and then clubbing and drinking and partying. That's it. And then there's no aspiration for anything else unless you're, again, extremely driven or
gifted
in
a specific area,
footy or whatever, and you know that's what you want to do, and you follow that. And most people don't get that, and most people don't harness that until a later age.
100%.
You know, and even like in myself, like so many people that I know, every conversation is, oh man, second I'm 18 and finish school at schoolies and I'm going to go partying and I'm going to go to Bali for 3 weeks. And that's wicked, man. Like, good on you, but what are you getting out of it? Are you getting experience? Are you growing? Are you saving money? All of these things, you know, people say, oh, that comes later. But this is the time to grind. Like, I believe personally, your 20s to even your 30s is your hardest time to grind and your hardest time to be able to set yourself up for a future. You know, and I'm not saying that once you hit that later age, it's too late or anything like that. But if you can get successful in this period and this age, in that, you know, that 20 to 30 age group, you're like 60% more likely to set yourself up. And even like how you were saying how it's kind of a culture that's been developed over there. The relationships,
100%,
the healthy mentoring, the friendship, the stuff that you can't get over one night or over just seeing someone face to face is something that Australia doesn't necessarily have.
I think the closest thing we've got to it is like, and you kind of touched on it, if you're an elite athlete or, you know, a budding elite athlete, you might go to a cricket camp for a week or an academy with an AFL club, you know, whatever it is. But I think super powerful for these kids. You know, you've got one kid coming from a really rich, privileged home, and then you've got another kid who's, you know, older brothers are caught up in gang, you know, the gang culture over in America. Yeah. Having those two kids come in and live in a cabin together for a week at 13, 14, 15 years of age, like, so powerful for them.
100%.
I mean, we see it a little bit. I was working at North Lakes this week on Monday. And I did parade, which is like the morning assembly that we do at the Y.
Yeah.
And I talked about my experience working at campuses on the north side versus the south side. And like our kids have, I was thinking about on the way in, it's like almost like a tribal kind of gang mentality of like, and I totally get it. I think it's an innate part of our you know, personalities as humans is you want to protect your own, right?
100%.
And you're wary of outsiders. And I see that with our kids, you know, the North Siders talk shit about the South Siders. And my message in this parade was, you guys are like all the same. Like all the shit that you're dealing with.
Yep.
Like,
it's identical.
Yeah.
It's quite literally identical.
Yeah. Like I just wrote head noise on the board behind me, and I just was like, all right, what do you guys think of, like, what does this mean to you? I was like, the head noise that you get, you know, when you wake up in the morning and, you know, something shitty happens, you know, at the start of your day, or you've got this issue, or the head noise creeps in because of something you were talking about 3 weeks ago in a conversation to a girl you liked, or whatever it might be. I said, like, it's so easy for us to face these things in isolation. Like, our first instinct is, oh, that's embarrassing to me, so I'm not going to share it, or I'm not going to express it to someone else. But the reality is, the kid in North Lakes dealing with that head noise, there's 15 of them down in Ipswich dealing with the same head noise at the same point of day. Like, so yeah, my message to those kids was like, don't feel like you're alone all the time, because the chances are there's someone else going through the exact same thing as you. And if you just open up, it's going to be that much easier for you to face that and get over it. So.
And that's like bang on. And that's something that I've noticed so much, especially in this workspace and talking to people and being able to, because prior to being set up at the campus that I'm at now, I used to do mobile programs. Oh, cool. So I used to go around everywhere to, you know, juvies, churches, schools, all these places, and run a program in these areas. And it is always around the same... It's always the same conversations. It's the same issues to a degree. It's, you know, but people are still at each other. Yeah. And there's still this animosity and this social divide. Yeah. And it's like, why are we doing this? Yeah. Like, everybody's anxious. Yeah. Everybody's going through stuff. Yeah. Everybody struggles to get out of bed at some point. Yeah. And, like, especially for our young men, you know, like, which is massive on, and I really, really emphasize that, like, young men's mental health is so important, but yet there's like a society, it's all good. Like, you know, man up, you'll be right. Like, it's, you know, and it's really difficult and it's hard and it's really, really upsetting to see young people have already been socially divided, but there's this, it's okay kind of culture. And that's something that is really, really important. Yeah. And so, especially to myself, you know, growing up in the Murray side of stuff as well, like there's this continuous divide socially because you don't fit in that group, or you don't play footy, or you're not a boxer, or you're like, and you know, or you're not Murray enough, or you're not black enough, or you're too white. Like, and there's this crazy push and pull that happens at a young age. And then once you get to, you know, your mid-20s, you're like, who am I? Like, who am I? Like, what am I doing?
What do I stand for?
What do I stand for? What are my morals? Like, where am I going in life? You know, I've talked to so many young people and they hit me up like I'm lost, bro. I don't know what to do. And it is something that's been developed from a very, very young age.
Yeah, I think so. We're programmed into it, even like subconsciously.
100%.
But like the benefits of opening up, like I'll use the summer camp as an example again. This was 2013, so 10 years ago. And some of these moments, like, I can still remember clear as day. So we'd have like a reflection just before bed. You got a day jam-packed full of activities. So these kids are ratchet by the end of the day. They're just so exhausted. Have a feed, do some sort of nighttime like campfire activity with the whole camp, and then all the cabins go back into their little cabins, get into bed, and then we do like a reflection of the day. Sometimes it's super lighthearted, like what do you like about today or whatever. And then generally speaking, as the week went on day or night 5 or 6 or 7, you start obviously developing more of a relationship with these kids, and they'll open up. Man, I'll never forget this one cabin I had once. The first night, sat down to do like a real generic, basic reflection, and it ended up talking about going around the cabin with the 14-year-old kids, mind you, talking about like some of the biggest hardships that they'd faced. And, you know, one of them, I remember some of the hardships being relatively trivial, right? You go, okay, yeah, that's tough for you. But you know, all right. And then the next kid talks about how his best friend at the age of 10, they were walking home from school, and these vans pulled up next to him, opened fire on him. These kids are 10 years old because the boy's older brother was part of a gang, and there was beef with them and another local gang. So the rival gangs cruised up and shot at the younger brother of the kid who was in the gang. And this kid tells me the story of him holding his 10-year-old best friend, school backpack on, dude, bleeding out in his arms on the side of the road. And it's I
got goosebumps, bro. I got goosebumps right now.
It's just heavy, man. Heavy stuff.
At 10?
At 10 years old. Yeah.
Dude, that's unfathomable.
Yeah. And bro, for me, a privileged little white kid coming from New South Wales. I was like, holy fuck.
What do I say?
You know, and the fact that we're talking about it now, 10 years on, shows how powerful that moment was. Like, I've no doubt that kid took some positive experience from that, just being able to speak about it, and not conversely, at the same time, the other 10 kids in the room who heard that story, like, their whole lives just got put into perspective. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Bro, I love that word perspective, man. I talk about that all the time on here, and the perspective that you have matters 150% of the time.
Yep.
If you can't change your perspective, your perception or your perspective on things, you don't grow.
Yeah.
You don't learn.
100%.
You don't, and like, honestly, goosebumps when I just heard that. And that, like, it's real.
Yeah.
It is so real.
Yeah.
And we are so blinded to it. We are so, you know, like, for myself, just get up, jump in the car, go to work.
Yep.
You know, growing up, running around the streets with the boys and you know, playing footy where you're safe and but just that in itself is unfathomable.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's a whole nother level of generational trauma and internal identity and all of these things that we work with and we see on a day-to-day basis. And at the moment, you know, there's individual students that I'm working with that have that blind perspective, and it's, you know, whether they've gone through something really traumatic or not, it's the world's on me, I'm a piece of crap, I'm not good enough, I'm this, I'm that, I don't deserve help, I don't trust anyone, and they're essentially manifesting it to themselves continuously. And it's not like a one conversation, it's like months of it. And then you have a young 10-year-old boy who has built the confidence to go, I literally watched my mate die due to gang violence, is just next level. Like, I don't even know what to say. You know, it's just...
Sometimes you don't have the words to say as well, especially in our job, like, as you know.
Oh, yeah, man.
And in those moments, like, that's a learning experience in and of itself. Like, sometimes the people around you aren't going to have the answers. Definitely. But at the very least, you can open up and let them in. They might not be able to say the magic words that are going to make it all better, but the very fact that you're making an ally out of that person that's in the room with you, like, I think that's the most important thing that I took away from it. Like, I'm not sure how much I helped that kid, but I'm sure that I helped him help everyone else in that room.
Definitely.
And, like, that group was
the domino effect is so
100%,
much bigger than
And I think like that cabin was tight as for the rest of the week. You know, like those boys were looking out for each other all the time.
And
like,
bonding over trauma, bro, is a massive thing.
Yeah.
So when I was running my programs and things like that, that's something I'd touch on very, very heavily. And I was working with a lot of, you know, youth gang and a lot of, you know, young troubled individuals.
Youth. Yeah.
And when someone says something, you know, whether it's in a conversation or, you know, we get in a yarning circle and we have a yarn or exactly like the cabin situation and someone, you know, I didn't grow up without a dad.
Yeah.
There's 4 other fellas over here that haven't grown up without a dad.
Yeah.
They bond together and they're like tight as now, man, you know? Like, and
just from that one
similarity. Just from that tiny trauma bond.
Yeah.
And it's really, really awesome to be able to see that happen in front of you.
Yeah.
And I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But for what you were saying before around, you know, when people like us in the industry that don't know what to say, sometimes silence is so much louder than words, man. Yeah. There's been so many opportunities and situations where I'm sitting with a young person and it's just like word vomit and it's vent and it's vent and it's vent and it's vent. And then by the end of it, you're just like, I have no idea what to say. I've never been through what you're going through,
bro.
But I'm going to bring myself back and it's, do you feel better?
Yeah.
Are you good now?
Yeah. Sometimes they just need that vent.
And I've seen it happen and they're like, whew, I'm good.
They go,
I'm
oh
good.
shit, sorry, man.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, I just got, bro.
Yeah.
It's all good, man. Like, let it out, you know? And it's so important to have healthy people around that we can talk to.
And there's no reason why that safe space can't be in the car with a parent or a carer on the way to school, or
100%.
waiting at the bus stop with your mate on the way home. Like, it shouldn't have to be with, and I don't like using this word, but a professional.
Yeah.
Like, it should be with whoever, like, and I think that's what's really important and a positive thing about, you know, this whole push for recognizing young men's mental health is like creating these safe spaces. Well, not even creating them, but helping other people create them, bro. Like, we shouldn't have to facilitate those conversations. They should just be happening.
And not to a point where it's build, then explode. Yeah. It's something's going on. Yeah. I've got a mentor. I've got a mate. I've got someone I can go to talk about. Whether it's like the most dumbest thing on the planet or it's extremely important and it's emotional, you know, like we need to be able to have yarns, you know, spit yarns with you know, your brethrens and your friends and be able to go, man, I'm doing it tough this week, hey? Like, I'm not feeling good. Yeah. And I have really, really tried to build that culture when I'm having conversation with people and I'm interacting with people. And, you know, there's a young fella at the moment who I'm, you know, really, really getting close with. And he's the absolute man. And we're you know, we're young and we train together and he's a really, really awesome dude. And every single time, I'm so proud of you, bro. Yeah. And you watch him and he's like, why is he? It's weird, but it's like, it's needed. Yeah. You know,
got to normalize that.
Got to normalize the encouragement and because this is so easy to put someone down. It is so easy to look at the negative. It's the easiest part of life is doing it hard. Yeah. That's easy. Yeah. The easy part of, you know, going through what you're going through is, oh, this is shit. It's too hard. I give up. That's easy, man. Yeah. The hard part is going, brother, can you spit yarn with me for 10 minutes? Can we, you know, Bungie, I need some support right now. I'm not doing tough. I'm doing it tough, man. Yeah. And that builds not only resilience, but it makes you grow. Yeah. Because you're uncomfortable. Yeah. And when you're uncomfortable, you grow and you learn
about yourself. Yeah.
It's crazy, man. Yeah. So doing the sports stuff, has that always been the dream? What was there ever?
Bro, not really. Hey, I think we got a bit off track there, but that's good. I didn't know where we were going to go with this potty, but I think that's a good thing about it.
Spitting yarns, man.
So I went, did the summer camp in the gap year, came back, worked a couple of hospo jobs until uni started the following year. Moved up to Brizzy, and then I dove right into uni. Like, I was always very academically inclined. Yeah. I remember my first uni assignment, I got like I worked for ages on it, bro. Like way more than a first year art student should be working on. Bro, yeah, I sent it back to my old history teacher for like drafting and everything. Like true. Like it was good.
That's good, man. That's good.
I remember
I wish I had that enthusiasm in school. Like,
I remember I got a really good mark on that first one, and then I was living on campus at the time. Talk about toxic masculinity.
There you go.
I don't even know if I want to go down that rabbit hole, but it was, if you've seen American Pie, then that's what college life was like. Yeah. It was just, so many positives.
The boys.
But so in hindsight, some negatives as well. Anyway, so I smashed out that first assignment, got a mad mark for it, and then I was just like, I'm here with all these new people in a new place. And I decided I don't know if it was subconscious or conscious, but my focus definitely shifted more to making the most out of my lived experiences there rather than really focusing on my education. Yeah. I knew that I could get by. Fours open doors is the golden saying in university. So I knew I could pass and get out of uni what I wanted to get out of it while still investing more in my relationships and my social life, for better or for worse. Probably a bit of both. And I also found that around that time, I started questioning what was, up until that point, very much a natural progression. Like I touched on before, go through school, go through uni, get a job. That's my career. That's my life settled. And I was just like, that's a bit like, you were saying it before as well, in our 20s, like this is our time to grind and our time to like live and learn shit about ourselves. And so, I went a bit off. I always wanted to teach. That was my thing that I always wanted to do. Yeah. I always wanted to be a teacher. So I was studying a Bachelor of Arts and then a Diploma of Education. English and Ancient History were my subject areas. And we'll talk about that a bit later, but I'm a mad history buff.
True.
And I think that ties in really good to some culture stuff that we'll talk about later on the pod. I was just like, I just questioned it a little bit. I was like, why should I just go through school, go through uni, get a job and not like explore what else life might have to offer me? Like some of the coolest people I knew were people that I'd met through hospitality, just part-time work, who were off starting businesses or going on traveling or doing these cool, like, I don't know, it just caught my interest. So I finished uni. I didn't take any work. I got offered a couple of jobs like through the pracs that I did. Like, no, I don't want to go into mainstream school. Like, I'd worked with these troubled young kids through the Y and seen the impact that relationship building and like mentoring can have on young people. Yeah. And I knew that in mainstream school, there's just not the time afforded to do that kind of stuff. And the last thing I felt like doing was going into a year 10 classroom and talking about Romeo and Juliet or talking about, just whatever text that we were writing about. Yeah, bro.
Same. Here's your assignment.
Yeah. Like there would have been plenty that I enjoyed about it, but it just didn't feel right for me. So I didn't take it. For whatever reason, I didn't take it. Just kept working in hospital. I think at that time I wanted to open a cafe, because I mean, you do what you know, right? And what I knew was working in hospitality, and like I like talking to people, and I was a good barista, so a passion for food. Thankfully, COVID come around like 12 months later. Thank God I didn't get into the cafe game.
There you go.
COVID hit. I got on the JobKeeper allowance through Centrelink because I lost my job, and then that's why I suddenly had all this free time, and that's when Jason and I kicked off Rugby League Riders. It was like, well, fuck, I'm sitting at home all day, every day, playing more COD than my brain can handle. I was like, at least I can get up every morning and spend 2 hours writing about the game of footy I watched the night before. So we started doing that. And like I said, it was part-time for 3 years. I think the year after that, I started working at the Y, part-time originally, and then got sucked into it pretty quick. I realised that was a place where, if I walked into a classroom and I could tell that the curriculum, whatever content I was supposed to be teaching today, I could tell if the kids were up for it or if they weren't. And if they weren't, I had, the freedom to go, fuck it, let's not do that. Yep. Let's talk about what's bothering you, or let's talk about what was on the news last night, or like what some societal issues that are happening. Yep. I really enjoyed that side of things. And then, just kept doing the writing stuff on the side. And then I actually walked away from the Y 2 years ago after that first year of teaching, which was hard, bro, because I was really enjoying it.
Yeah.
But I got an opportunity to work with the PNG, the Papua New Guinea Hunters, who compete in the Queensland Cup.
Yeah, wicked.
So I worked with them all last year. I think it's always... I shouldn't say it wasn't always a dream of mine to work in professional sport, but my interest and my passion in rugby league through rugby league riders kind of led me down that path. So yeah, I worked with the Hunters last year.
What was that like? Like, was that...
It was...
working with high star professionals is a whole nother ball game.
Yeah.
Like...
It was a culture shock, that's for sure. I think one thing I've always been like very lucky to be good at is like relationships and connecting with people, whether you're a muso or a footy head or a gamer or
there's always something
there's
that
something
you can build on.
a common ground. Yeah. And that was really important because the Papua New Guineans, who I've never had any experience or exposure, I didn't have any friends from PNG, although ironically Kylan is Papua New Guinean, and I didn't even know that at the time. So that shows how much I knew about the culture. It was sick, man. Really cool. They're a very beautiful, kind, very cheeky, like humorous people. Obviously only a small sample size, but from what I gathered from the way they interacted with one another, a lot of love to give, bro, these Papua New Guineans.
Thank you for everybody to listening on into the Yarning Circle, and make sure to share, comment, subscribe and like. And if you're wanting to watch the visual side of this podcast, make sure to hit Isiah.Hippisley at youtube.com.